What up, all my instrumented peeps? This is Tom Hubbard, and we're here to do a research update video. I haven't did one of these videos in a while, and we actually have a couple cool articles that came out recently that I want to cover on our channel because they're pretty big considering a video series we just did not that long ago, talking about alkaline ionized water or electrolyzed reduced water. And this has been an area of confusion for a long time. And so this is really cool because a group of researchers actually went through and actually discussed and collected a lot of data that definitively proves that molecular hydrogen is the therapeutic agent of that particular water, alkaline ionized reduced water or electrolyzed reduced water, and debunked a whole bunch of the myths surrounding it. So we're going to go ahead and show you a couple of these articles, give you a few details, and then wrap the video up. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, so the first article we're actually going to cover is on ORP and H2. We actually did a video on this subject a while back where we covered some of the data that's actually going to be listed in this article. But I did want to go ahead and read the title for you and give you a basic outline of what the article is talking about in a few points. So the first thing is the title. The title is ORP should not be used to estimate or compare concentrations of aqueous H2 and in silico analysis and narrative synopsis. All right, so this article was, like I said, was published recently, and by and large, the article basically is going to be an in-depth breakdown of ORP, and how it relates with dissolved hydrogen gas within solution. So this includes electrolyzed reduced water, and what ORP, what can influence ORP, such as temperature, pH, the concentration of hydrogen. These things they're going to go ahead and break down in depth and show you why ORP is not a helpful tool for determining the therapeutic value of hydrogen water. We already discussed this, certain aspects of this, as I said, in our ORP video. But I do think this article is awesome because it gives you a very detailed breakdown and basically shows that ORP can be used to detect the presence of dissolved hydrogen gas within solution, as long as you can identify there's no other reducing agents in the water. So basically reducing agents like any other antioxidants that could be present in the water, vitamin C and things of that nature. So as long as you can ensure that the water doesn't have anything else like that, ORP can be used to detect the presence of dissolved hydrogen gas in water, which is cool. But other than that, basically, it is not a helpful tool. And this article demonstrates why it's not, because temperature and pH have such a monster influence on it. So I wanted to go ahead and grab a few little nuggets from it and just give y'all a couple of the facts from the actual article itself. All right, so I'm going to read a couple quotes for you. And here's the first one. I thought it's pretty impactful. It says, our analysis shows that a 1 unit increase in pH, example given 7 to 8, influences the ORP as much as increasing the H2 concentration by 100 times. Example given 1 ppm to 100 ppm or 100 milligrams per liter. So I'm going to give a little bit of context for that. Basically, it's demonstrating that in order to have a equivalent comparison from a pH of going from 7 to 8 and the influence that it has on ORP, you would have to have a increase from the hydrogen concentration going from 1 ppm all the way to 100 ppm. And that's baffling because 100 ppm is like unheard of. Just so you can get a context for 100 ppm or what would be necessary to produce 100 ppm. 1.6 ppm is saturation. That's where hydrogen is under normal atmospheric pressure. In order to get higher than that, you got to increase the pressure. So let's say you had 30 psi, you might produce 3 ppm, right? Or if you had 60 psi, you could produce something like 6 or 7 ppm, which 60 psi is basically what your normal faucet is at home. In order to get 100 ppm of hydrogen dissolved into water, you would need 1,000 psi or 1,000 pounds per square inch. I don't even know what I could actually think of in this moment to compare that to. And that is why they're saying through this point is why you can actually see how much more pH has an influence on ORP than the actual H2 does. It's pretty night and day. It's not even really a very good comparison. It's ridiculous how much pH influences the ORP over H2. And so that's kind of to give you, at least I hope I explained it well enough, but that kind of gives you an idea of how much more pH can influence the ORP than actual H2 does. Here is another quote, and I'm not actually going to read it. I think reading it might make it more complicated for you. So I'm going to just go ahead and give a little explanation for it. So basically, they were stating on this point that an ORP meter, in order for an ORP meter or ORP to be used to measure hydrogen gas within the same type of accuracy as, let's say, the reagent drops that are out there, the H2 blue reagent drops that are out there, it would have to have basically a 0.8 millivolt range of accuracy to be able to have that equivalent. But it doesn't, and in fact, it actually has about 125% error if you were to try to make those comparisons. So basically, in other words, ORP is far more inaccurate at measuring hydrogen gas in solution as compared with H2 blue drops, or like a titration method that uses methylene blue, to the point that has about 125% error in its accurate in actually being accurate. So that's pretty impactful as well too. I mean, 125% error, you might as well not even use it, is the point. And then the next thing, the next two quotes I'm gonna read briefly, and then we'll get to the next article. This one says, in fact, this can easily result in a water sample with a greater negative ORP than others, despite having significantly less H2. And then it also states this makes it impossible to consistently determine if one water sample has more H2 than another water sample. And so that's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you really can't use it very well to actually compare H2 waters versus H2 waters. You don't know which one is going to have more hydrogen in it just because it says it's a negative ORP. One says one could be a negative 700 ORP and another one can be a negative 500 or a negative 300 ORP, and the negative 300 ORP can actually have more H2 than the negative 700 ORP in it. So basically, ORP is basically irrelevant for trying to determine which water is more therapeutic. All right, so the next article we're actually going to get into, and I think it's going to be a really cool one. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so the next article is actually published in 2 parts. And so we're going to cover the first part, and then we're going to cover the last one and wrap the video up. So the title for the first part is Electrolyzed Reduced Water, Part 1. Molecular hydrogen is the exclusive agent responsible for the therapeutic effects. And so the title basically tells you everything you need to know about this article. It's a pretty impressive one, and basically it goes through and breaks down a lot of not only the history of how we got here with electrolyzed reduced water, but hydrogen being the exclusive therapeutic agent of it. And so we actually have a video series on this as well, or video on this as well, where we discuss that hydrogen is exclusively the therapeutic agent for electrolyzed reduced water. But in this article, they actually go through and debunk many of some of the pseudoscience or scientific claims that have been proposed for it. And it wasn't really until 2007 that we actually knew that hydrogen could possibly provide some kind of therapeutic effect or have antioxidant-like effects. And so there have been many misconceptions and ideas that have been presented for why this water could be therapeutic, such as it being microclustered, or such as it's high pH, or that it has active hydrogen in it, or any of these possibilities. There are a myriad of them. But this article actually goes through and actually demonstrates why those particular ideas or notions or hypotheses don't work, and how molecular hydrogen actually exhibits everything that would exhibits all of the therapeutic characteristics that you see with electrolyzed reduced water, that you can see it in hydrogen articles, and they exclusively demonstrate that molecular hydrogen is the therapeutic agent of electrolyzed reduced water. And so I want to go ahead and give you 2 quick points from the article that I thought were impactful. Okay, so here's quote 1. Finally, through many in vitro and in vivo studies, each one of these propositions was examined and refuted one by one until it was conclusively demonstrated that H2 was the exclusive agent responsible for both the negative ORP and the observed therapeutic effects of ERW. Pretty impressive statement. Quote number 2. This article briefly apprised the history of electrolyzed reduced water and comprehensively reviewed the sequential research demonstrating the importance of H2. All right, so this one is one of my favorite. It's by far my favorite one. Obviously, because we're all about H2 over here in H2 minutes, and so this is something we've been trying to help and teach people a lot about for many years since we've been doing H2 minutes. And it's still rather confusing out there. There are a lot of proponents of electrolyzed reduced water, or alkaline ionized water. It's the same thing. A lot of proponents out there, and they give many reasons as to why that water is therapeutic. And we've been here for a long time saying, hey, H2 is the sole reason of why that water is therapeutic or provides any kind of therapeutic potential for humans. And this research article actually goes through and demonstrates that molecular hydrogen is the therapeutic agent of electrolyzed reduced water, or electrolyzed ionized water, whatever title you want to put for it. So let's go ahead and talk about part 2 of this article. Okay, so the title of this part 2 is actually called Electrolyzed Reduced Water, Safety Concerns and Effectiveness as a Source of Hydrogen Water. And so in this one, I'm going to just cover briefly as an overview that it basically states some similar concepts as electrolyzed reduced water or alkaline ionized water has been associated with many safety studies that have been done, and has been have quite a few benefits attributed to it throughout the literature. But there's also been articles that have touched on the reality of it being harmful in some ways, or that there are safety concerns. There are certain conditions by which the water can not be safe to consume when using, let's say, a water ionizer or a type of device that actually produces this water. And so this article goes through and actually breaks down these safety concerns, and actually goes through the literature and demonstrates or shows how we shouldn't just only come to these things only come to water ionizers or systems that produce electrolyzed reduced water without having certain things in mind to ensure that the water is safe. And so one of the things is that electrolyzed reduced water can produce a very high pH of water. And they actually show in here that that there are regulations in place that these systems, you shouldn't be consuming water above a 9.8 pH. And so this other things, we've said this in some of our videos as well. They also talk about how these systems can, within certain conditions, leak heavy metals into the water. And so making sure that you actually take good practice, good maintenance practices with your systems to ensure their safety, so you won't actually leach platinum nanoparticles or things like that into the water, or the actual metals that is used for the electrodes that are in these systems. It also touches on the notion that these devices can produce therapeutic levels of hydrogen gas dissolved into the water within the range of within a safe range if taken care of properly. And so that's great. I think they actually have the range somewhere between 0.2 up to about 1.2 is kind of an average. But they also talk about, because of the conditions of these systems, or because by virtue of how these systems work, it can precipitate calcium in the water, which can reduce the dissolved hydrogen concentrations and cause a ton of problems that can lead to, like I just said, platinum nanoparticles, or even, as a substrate, but also like the metals that are used, like titanium and things like that. So, and these are some of the main issues with safety when it comes to these systems. So this is what this article is unpacking, and basically reinforces the idea that ORP should not be used to try to determine if this water's just to determine if the water is going to be beneficial or therapeutic, and it should not be used to try to determine if the water is going to be safe. That if you're going to be using these type of systems, make sure you do the proper maintenance for it, and also make sure you have minerals in the water so that the dissolved hydrogen gas can be produced and dissolved. So that's basically a brief overview of the article. They go through and unpack far more than whatever I can mention in this last 60 seconds or whatever, but it's definitely worth the read. So I'll go ahead and read you two quick quotes, and then we'll go ahead and I'll give you a couple statements and we'll be done. All right. So here are the quotes. Quote number 1. Accordingly, regulations on ERW mandates that the pH of ERW should not exceed 9.8 pH. This is really important because there are many systems out there and many products out there that claim you should drink very high pH water. My water is 10 pH, or my water is 11 pH, or whatever, or anything like that. And I think it's really good to know that there's been research and there's been governing bodies that have actually stated that, hey, drinking water above this can actually cause harm and can be an irritant to us. And so we shouldn't actually do that. And so this is important that you know that if you are using a water ionizer and it says on there, hey, 9.5 pH, or it says 8.5 pH, or it has a pH level where it says level 1 pH or level 4 pH, that regardless of those buttons, you should measure the pH of the water. Because if your water is not starting from exactly 7 pH from your tap water, then those buttons can be inaccurate, and they basically are just truly buttons that denote an applied voltage setting. And so basically you need to be able to determine the pH of the water not based on the system. And so ensuring that you're drinking water less than a 9.5 or less than a 9.8 pH is really important, and it's actually something that has been deemed by and been mandated by actual regulation bodies that are actually out there. So here's quote number 2. Other potential safety concerns include impaired growth, reduced mineral, vitamin, and nutrient absorption, harmful bacterial overgrowth, and damage to the mucosal lining causing excessive thirst. So basically, drinking high pH water from a system that can produce electrolyzed reduced water that has not been taken care of, or has had some of these issues like that I've already talked about, not been taken care of, maybe leaching metals or certain things like this. There are articles out there that discuss these potential harms that has been associated with or safety concerns that have been associated with this type of water. It's very important to ensure you're going about it rightly. That's all I'll say about it. Okay, so quote number 3. Since the concentration of H2 in ERW may be well below the therapeutic levels, users are encouraged to frequently measure the H2 concentration with an accurate method, avoiding ORP or ORP-based meters. It basically discusses in this part 2 of this article is that these systems can produce therapeutic levels of hydrogen in water, but they also can produce electrolyzed reduced water without therapeutic levels for a variety of reasons, of which I've already discussed. And so it's important that you go about regularly, if you're using one of these systems like a water ionizer, it's very important to measure the dissolved hydrogen concentration regularly and clean that system regularly so that you ensure that your H2 levels are at the therapeutic, at what scientific studies deem as therapeutic for humans. right now. And so if you're measuring less than 0.5 ppm with your water ionizer, it's going to be very important to figure out how you can get those milligrams per liter or ppm of dissolved H2 up, so that you can actually ensure you're getting a therapeutic level of hydrogen into your body. And so ORP is not a good tool for that. ORP base meters. So this means hydrogen meters that utilize ORP are not a useful tool. So I would suggest the H2 blue drops would be the most convenient, easy, and accurate way to go ahead and do it at home. And other than that, they actually discuss that in the two parts of these articles that apart from ORP, apart from H2 blue or a methylene blue reagent, like MIS drops as well, you basically just have very expensive methods to actually measure dissolved hydrogen gas in water, such as gas chromatography, which is like the gold standard. But I think H2 blue with good practice will actually suffice, and you'll be able to have an idea of what kind of dissolved hydrogen levels your water ionizer are producing. So that's it for this research update. Let's go ahead and have some closing. I'm going to leave you with some closing thoughts, and then we can go ahead and be done. Okay, my H2 Minute peeps, I hope y'all really enjoyed that research update and I was able to explain some of these things. I wanted to make a quick video around it at the end of this year, so that you guys can have some information about it and know that these articles exist. I can't praise these articles enough because there's just been so much confusion in this area for so long, and to actually have a group of researchers that actually care enough about the topic to make it clear for us is very important. This has been about 15 to 20 years of constant confusion for people, especially here, like around the world, not just here in the US, but really confused about electrolyzed reduced water or alkaline ionized water, or what is the benefit of it. And there's so much noise out there, or possibilities for it being like, what is the therapeutic agent? There's not just one, it's a multiplicity of them. And so they actually make it so clear. And so I really want to thank this research group for actually taking the time to do this research and bring it all together so that we can actually benefit from it. And also, I want to go ahead and let you all know that we've been in this space for a long time, trying to make this part of the therapeutic hydrogen industry, or I should say the therapeutic hydrogen hydrogen therapy, I should say. Make it clear because people have been confused, and that's what we do at H2 Minutes, is we try to go into the chaos and actually bring some clarity through the scientific literature. Just to give you a brief rundown, we have a microclustering video, we have a ORP video, we have the truth about water ionizers, we have the problem with water ionizers, which kind of discusses some of the safety concerns and issues when it comes to dissolving hydrogen gas and things of that nature. We have the other special waters that are part of water ionizers, so the acidic waters, the beauty water, the strong alkaline water, things like that. We actually break down those videos and talk about the science of why they work or why they might not work. We have a video on how to get the most out of your water ionizer. So how you actually, if you know this type of information about your system, how can you optimize it to make sure you're getting the most amount of hydrogen out of that unit? We have our story. This is why it's also near dear in our heart. We came into the hydrogen industry through the avenue of alkaline ionized water, or water ionizers, like many others. And so this is near and dear to our heart as to why it's important. This type of information is important. We have a Otto Warburg video discussing some of the things around Otto Warburg and how the whole idea of alkaline is good, acidic is bad, and those type of things. We have a alkalizing the body video, and we even have a pH testing video where we go through and do experiments to talk about pH of water versus alkalinity, or the buffering capacity of water. We have so many videos on this topic to try to make it clear for you guys, and we wanted to go ahead and highlight these articles and highlight these videos and, as a means to say, hey, there is scientific evidence that's just been collected and put together in such a way that substantiates all these videos we've done for you guys. So I hope this helps, and Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to everyone. And we'll see you guys next year. Deuces.